Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Poets&Quants' online MBA panel. Today, we're talking about leveraging an online MBA to advance your current career, and we're joined by some great alumni from top online MBA programs who are going to tell us a little bit about their experience. So welcome to all of you. Viewers, please feel free to use the Q&A function to submit any questions, and if we have time, I'll get to those at the end. Excuse me. But I wanted to begin by giving our panelists a chance to introduce themselves. So please just take a minute, tell us about where you work, what you do now, your online MBA program, and if you'd like, please add a fun fact about yourself as well. Grace, we'll start with you.
Hi, my name is Grace Mcintosh. I graduated from the University of Washington Hybrid MBA program in 2021. I am currently an organizational development specialist at Starbucks. I've been with Starbucks for 8 years and I've been in this role for about 2. And I'm coming to you from Indianapolis, Indiana. I moved here about 6 months ago. And my interesting fact, I have a Disney podcast called Disney Versus.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's not, there is a little bit of language, so I would warn you if you're gonna listen, maybe not around kids.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks. George, how about you?
Awesome. Thanks, Christy. So my name is George Sayoun. I graduated in 2020 from the Manchester Business School with my MBA. I've been in the banking industry for 15 years. My current role is Director of Digital Business Risk and Governance at the Royal Bank of Canada, with background and experience in fraud, operations, strategic design, project management, and product management in this payment space specifically. Fun fact about myself, I am a huge Marvel and Spider-Man fan. Might be able to tell from my background, but we've got everything Marvel in this house. My wife doesn't seem to agree, but it's okay.
That's great. I was noticing that poster behind you at the beginning. Very nice. And what about you, Amanda?
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Farr, and I'm actually currently still enrolled in my online MBA program through Purdue University, set to graduate at the end of this calendar year. Currently, I work for Alpha Chi Omega headquarters as an engagement manager, so doing lots of human resources with a main focus in talent acquisition and recruiting. And a fun fact about me is I live off of Diet Coke. I drink it like it's water, and it has definitely gotten me through this MBA program so far.
That's great advice. Those little tips that you can only get on a panel like this. And finally, Brian, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Brian Roscoe. I am an Illinois Gies alumni of their online MBA program. I graduated in May 2021. I am currently a quality manager at AbbVie Pharmaceuticals, really focusing on incoming bulk drugs and packaging materials supporting our production plant. And fun fact, you guys are in the presence of a mini putt league champion. I just won last night, so we'll roll with that.
Wow, that is coming in hot with that fun fact last night. Very good. Congratulations. Did you get a trophy or?
I got to hold it and then it just goes back on the wall. So
very good. Well, thank you all for joining us today. And we're just gonna, dive right in and we'll go back to Grace for the first question. But then all of you will get a chance to answer. So Grace, what led you to pursue an online MBA? Did you consider other programs such as a full-time MBA or a specialized master, that sort of thing?
I did. So I took about 6 years between my undergrad and my master's program. And I told myself that I had to decide between going to culinary school, going to law school, or getting an MBA. Once I had the idea in my mind for at least a year, I was like, yeah, MBA feels like the right one. And I considered full-time programs, I considered JD MBA programs, and ultimately landed on, I am terrified of debt. And doing an online MBA afforded me the opportunity to continue working while I was going to school. Really, the only way that I would have considered doing a full-time program was if I applied for a top 5 school, because obviously the cost outweighs the or the reward outweighs the cost. So that's how I chose online. And I chose this one specifically because I was based in Seattle and it had that partially in-person component, which was really important to me. And like through research was told the power of the MBA is in your network, and that is absolutely proven to be true.
Absolutely. George, what about you? Same question.
So I think I'd always known that if I had gone back to do my MBA, I'd want to do a part-time program. Similar to Grace, I wanted to ensure that I was still working to be able to supplement the income while in the program. My story was a little bit of a happy accident. So my wife was actually looking at doing her master's program here in Canada, and there was an expo that was set up in Toronto. And she asked me to go for support, uploaded my resume, and on the day of, she was sick. So she was like, okay, I'm not gonna go.
Oh, wow.
You don't have to go since I'm not gonna go. And I had been contacted by a few schools. So I was like, I'm just gonna go check it out. And it was there that I actually hit it off with Chris Healy from MBS to look into the program at Manchester. And I think what really drew me to it was the flexibility. I think like others, I had this myth that you had to quit your job. It was, a full-time investment. There was no part-time options. And really was pleasantly surprised with the options, the flexibility, and the cherry on top was the ability to travel to another country to complete some of the case study work. So that was an added bonus.
Well, did your wife get to go back to school also?
She did, yes. She completed her master's around the same time. So it was really well timed.
Very good. Amanda, tell us about your story.
Yeah, so I really started looking into continued education at kind of the start of COVID-19. So in early March 2020. With that, I always knew I wanted to go back to school, but I didn't know if I wanted to pursue just a master's in human resources or an MBA. And I felt like the MBA really gave me more insight into business as a whole to hopefully progress my career or continue to progress my career. For me, picking the program with Purdue was so easy because it, similar to what George just said, it allowed me to continue living my life and work the program on kind of my schedule. And so I've been super happy with it so far.
Very good. And Brian, how about you?
Yeah, so for me, I actually graduated from Purdue University with my undergrad in engineering. So for me, as I had kind of progressed throughout my career, I was finding myself in many more situations which were dealing with, business type of methodologies and whatnot. So for me, having such a technical background, I really wanted to start looking at, getting my MBA and preparing myself for those future roles, whether it was management or leading people or being in more strategy. And so I'm in the Chicagoland area, and I really was kind of smack dab in the middle of, Chicago Booth and Northwestern, which obviously, as we all know, are, top 5 programs. But as Grace had kind of alluded to, is debt was something I didn't really want to live with for an extended period of time. 150K is kind of one of those things that's pretty eye-opening when you're talking about like a 2-year degree. And I came across the University of Illinois that offered this super affordable online MBA. It allowed me to continue to, work and be a part-time student. And it was so flexible and just the community just felt right. So yeah, for me, it was the decision was a no-brainer. And I mean, I walked away in such a better position, and I couldn't be happier with the decision I made.
Yeah, absolutely. Illinois Gies is one of the, programs that has really caught our attention as well for what they offer. Well, George, we'll go to you for this next round of questions to start, and tell us what was the calculation that you made to decide whether the MBA was worth the investment?
Thanks. So I would say that I started to see a pattern at the bank. So more and more MBAs were coming in. A lot more people who were, getting to that executive leadership level had an MBA or had some sort of postgraduate degree, and it was becoming increasingly more competitive. So I saw the writings on the wall, if you will. It had been almost 10 years from when I completed my undergrad to when I decided to do my MBA. And I spoke to a few of my sponsors who, had gone through the experience. They had great things to say about it, but it was more than just a paper. It was, the experience that they really talked about that drew them to it, and that they still recall and really admire from the time that they did their MBAs. So I was even still uncertain when I was starting the program that is this right for me? And then I still remember it like yesterday, but like the first class, first day, I sat in and, kind of looked around the room and I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And realized that like, the skills that we were going to embark on were really more practical than ones I had seen in my, undergrad experience. And it was then that I was like, this is absolutely worth the investment.
And Amanda, same to you. What was the calculations you made on that ROI?
Yeah, so I will tell you, I am more of a qualitative person than quantitative. So I wish I could tell you I sat down and, crunched the numbers, but that wouldn't be true. In talking to my sister, who also got an MBA degree, she really said, she was like, the hardest part of an MBA is deciding to go and deciding that you want to make that commitment to your education. But my parents always raised me, teaching me that an investment in your education is worth every cent. So really just deciding to make that scary choice to go back to school, 4 years after undergrad. But for me, in my undergrad, I was a journalism major. So not really relating to the career path that I later chose for myself. So wanting to go back and really hone in on more of those business skills was very important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, you talked a little bit about this already, but can you expand maybe a little bit on the calculations you made?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of similar to Amanda, I wouldn't say I crunched the numbers other than, seeing kind of that price point when I was obviously searching for the school I wanted to go to. But, for me going into my career and starting off in much more technical roles, it was like, as I was moving around the different organizations within my company, it was just that realization that all those positions I was seeing that I aspired to be in at some point, these managers, these directors, these VPs, they all had these extended and additional educations and certifications and degrees and whatnot. So for me, it was a no-brainer. I didn't want to be overlooked when I was applying for these positions. And, I'm in a position right now that I got halfway through my MBA, and it really resonated with me when the interviewer had actually said, when they had offered me the position, that, hey, we chose you because you were pursuing your MBA while this other candidate wasn't. So like for me, that told me everything I needed to know, that, me investing in myself, in my MBA, it already paid off. Absolutely.
Grace, do you have anything to add to this discussion?
Yeah, a little bit. I was managing at the Starbucks roastery in Seattle when I started my MBA program, and when I came out of undergraduate, my undergrad is in music, and I was working as a sound engineer and did not want to do that anymore. And so I started working for Starbucks as a barista, and that's how I started in Chicago. And so when I was looking for, at some point, there was a turning point where like, oh, I could actually stay with Starbucks as a career. And I got to be a manager at the roastery, and I was well networked within corporate, and just finding this barrier where I could either stay in management and I could progress a little bit through management before I broke to corporate, but I didn't want to do that. And so getting an MBA, and I also wasn't like really sure what I wanted to do with my life, what I wanted my career to be, because I started working at Starbucks right after school. So for me, it was like, business is interesting to me. This part of my current job as a manager, there are business elements that are very interesting to me, but really this is a multi-tool of a degree that can go in a bunch of different directions. And it paid off. I moved into corporate from the roastery 3 months into the program.
Wow, fascinating. That's great. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit specifically about the programs. Can each of you identify the key factor or differentiator that led you to your specific program, maybe a little bit different than what we've already talked about? And Amanda, for this one, we'll start with you.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, I really love that Purdue allowed you to kind of choose how long you were in the program. So I think they advertise it as a 2-year program, but if you say, hey, I have life going on, they'll work with you. So for me, I was in the process of getting married this past year, and planning a wedding during COVID is
Yeah.
not fun. And very time consuming. So they actually worked with me, and I was able to kind of move my coursework a little bit so that it is a 2.5-year program instead of trying to just, cram it all into a schedule that didn't fit my life.
Oh, absolutely. Fascinating. Brian, what about you?
Yeah, so for me, there were kind of several factors is because I always believed myself to be a better learner, like in person. And when I had ultimately decided to do an online MBA, the one thing that really stuck out to me about Illinois was these live sessions were so interactive. It was practically like you were there sitting in class. It was kind of really how they presented it. It just felt right to me. And another thing was it was fairly local. The university for me being in Chicago was only 2 hours away. I understand it's a global program, but for me it still allowed me to be very close to a community that was part of this program. And another factor for me, it was like I unfortunately didn't have the opportunity in my undergrad to study abroad, so I was really looking for a global presence in my program. So not only that with the outreach of the students, but I was able to do a global immersion and do a week in Brazil pre-pandemic with the Gies Online MBA, which was incredible because it gave you that in-person interaction and that global scale that I was looking for.
Oh, absolutely. And George, how about you?
For me, I would say, to Brian's point, the travel element and getting that opportunity to travel abroad and do the MBA experience outside of your home country was a big one. But I'd have to say the flexibility in work-life balance was also very critical. Manchester did a really great job for their part-time program in moving with your life changes. And similar to Amanda's story, like I was planning a wedding, moving into a new house, and it was challenging at times. And having the online recordings so that you can go on whenever you'd like and still feel like you're part of the lesson was key to the experience. And then, you kind of get the best of both worlds because with the Manchester program, you are able to travel 3 times a year. First year in the UK, but then second year you can pick from a select number of places. So it was really a great sort of immersive experience that helped, tailor and work with you, given that we all have real life happening at the same time.
Absolutely. And Grace, you as well, please.
Yeah, part of the reason I chose my program was because of international travel element, and I missed out on that due to COVID. But the biggest part, yeah, the biggest part for me was that, so for the UW hybrid MBA program, classes are live on Tuesdays, and then review sessions are on Thursdays, and that's optional. We had one primary team throughout the entire program. So it's 21 months, no summer. And I liked the short timeline, and I liked knowing that I was going to be working with one specific team for a deep dive, and then also have smaller team opportunities when I got into those electives where my teammates weren't always in classes. And that was great because I had this foundational team that I trusted and learned how to work really effectively with. And then I also had those opportunities for light touch. How do I work really quickly with new people? Some of my closest MBA friends are from those smaller group breakouts. And then the biggest part for me was at the beginning of each quarter is an immersion. That's 3 to 5 days on campus at UW. And of course, I had access to UW facilities the entire time I was in the program, as long as it wasn't closed due to COVID.
Yeah.
So I loved going on campus to study, but those in-person immersions are intensive. They're class all day and career networking all day and all night. It's a marathon, but those are some of my fondest memories. So having that in-person element was really, really important to me.
Very good. Well, all of you seem like really good examples of kind of the online MBA student who has worked 8 to 10 years and then is just, trying to make that decision. What would each of you say to a prospective student who says, I've already have 8 to 10 professional years on my resume. Why would I consider going back to school now? I think some of you have talked about this, but is there any advice that you would give to students, kind of struggling with that decision right now? And Brian, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, going through the program, having met a wide variety of students, there is no shortage of work experience in these programs. I mean, there was everything from someone who has 3-4 years to someone who had 25 years. I was partnered up with someone who was in their 60s and decided they all of a sudden wanted to start a new venture in their life. So really, it's kind of that age-old quote is like, it's never too old to, never too old, never too late to start something. So, I mean, if you believe in investing in yourself and educating yourself and wanting to continue to learn, there are great programs out there that are affordable, that are really interactive, and then are going to be super rewarding. And you never know what can come from it. I mean, for me, this experience was more rewarding than I could have even bargained for. So I'm so happy I did it.
Yeah. Grace, same question, but also maybe talk about how you are going to leverage your online MBA in your current career.
That's a great question. So, oh man. Let me go back to the first question real quick. What was that? It was
what advice do you have for people who have worked for a while? And then
yeah, I'd say this is a great opportunity to meet people who are completely different than you. And you wouldn't be looking into getting an MBA if you weren't curious. So to be around like-minded people who are genuinely interested and invested and learning something new and networking with new people who have different perspectives, that is really empowering and really encouraging to me and fueling. Taking on debt for me was easy once I really wrap my head around, this is all about my personal development. I know that there will be dividends at the end.
Yes.
And there have been. As far as what I plan on doing with it going forward, I actually found out 2 days ago that I'm being laid off from my current job. Due to reorganization and COVID reasons. So there are a whole slew of emotions, as anyone who's been laid off can attest to. But one of the things I was not expecting was one, relief, because I just spent all of this money on this MBA. I spent a lot of time and working with people who had completely different experiences. And I was kind of feeling like I'm missing out on exploring what's next, what other opportunities I could get into, and really honing in on what I want to do, what my skills are, and what I want to continue to develop. So having relief from, well, I'm getting paid for a little bit to search for a job and actually hone in on that, like, that's pretty cool. So I'm not nearly as scared as I think I would be if I didn't have my MBA, because one, I'm surrounded by all of these amazing people who I've developed this network and I keep in touch with them regularly. But also so many of the people in my program, I want to say around 70 to 75% of our cohort has started a new job or been promoted or moved to a different company during that time. So I also have this great network of people who are comfortable transitioning to something new.
Wow, that is such relevant insight for this discussion in these times right now, right? With everything in flux. George, what about you?
I think I echo a lot of Grace and Brian's comments especially around curiosity. And the advice I'd say is go for it. I think too many of us become complacent in our day-to-days, and we miss out on a lot of those new and fresh experiences if we have the time and support to do it. I think it's absolutely invaluable for the connections and network alone that you're going to meet. Our program was super diverse. Having done my undergrad here locally in Toronto, and then to do it in the UK, where you are going to school peer-to-peer with folks from all over the world, was an incredible experience. And you really take away a lot more than just the lectures and the assignments that you're working through because of that. So I think that was a really big piece, and it really gives you your own perspective in your day-to-day career. I don't think there is such thing as it's been too long as, since I've done my undergrad, I was 10 years out. I never thought I'd do my MBA, and it was an incredible experience. Go for it. Life is too short to not.
Yeah, absolutely. Amanda, we're going to jump ahead just a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit specifically about the learning experience in your program? What was your interaction with professors and students? And when did you, how did the networking process go with an online program?
Yeah, absolutely. So with my program through Purdue, it is completely online. So how Grace has been talking about some of those in-person experiences, we haven't had those. And so with that, I thought it would be harder to develop some of those relationships with my professors. But it's actually been very easy if you make the effort. So what I have found is all of my professors offer office hours, in person, or not in person, but like live lectures, not just recordings. And so if you make the effort and are intentional about attending those, you really still can create that good professor-student relationship. And so many of my professors like want to get to know their students. From there, I would say the course structure itself, there is recorded sessions, live sessions, and lots of group work. That's something that I think Purdue has done extremely well, is offering group work for almost every course, which really, like everyone has mentioned today, is where you get that opportunity to learn from your peers, learn about other roles or business industries that are out there. So that group work has been just invaluable to me.
Absolutely. Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Amanda said it right. I mean, these professors really do want to get to know their students. We also had office hours, and it was a much more intimate and personal experience doing that. But also too, I mean, even in the live sessions, because Illinois would offer live sessions several times throughout the day, sure, there may be 300 plus students enrolled in that class, but really when you're attending those live sessions, it may only be 60 students in that actual live webinar, because you're splitting up those students in between different times. And then you also have a lot of folks who, because of their busy life or schedule, that they have to watch the recordings later. But in terms of like getting to know your other students, I mean, the breakout sessions, the group work, and we have basically a social platform called Workplace that is owned by Facebook. It looks exactly like Facebook, but it's used for the MBA students to interact, have study sessions, have study groups, have happy hours, or just anything. I mean, you can join a group about, George, there'd be a group for Marvel fans, and there'd be a group for people who like cars. And then you can create your own little communities and get to know other students, whether it's in a local spot or somewhere, overseas.
Yeah, I bet what students get out of that is very proportionate to how much effort they put into a program like that. Yeah. So George, kind of going off the same question, can you think of any experiences where you actually kind of really connected with students and maybe learned as much from them as you did from the course overall?
Absolutely. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the in-person piece of Manchester. So while we were there in person, we'd be there for 6 days. You'd cover 2 classes over 3 days each, and the days were intense. And I think it adds a sense of pressure that you're kind of forced into this group that of people that you never worked with before in your life. You have no idea, their background, their experiences. And you got to work together and come up with a solution to an assignment. And I think that is what I kind of resonate most with when I think back to that period where, you bonded over the fact that you were, very stressed, trying to, put something together at midnight the night before a presentation. And it's that sense of camaraderie, but also the collaboration and the way that you learn to assign, who's doing what based off of each person's skill set. And you have no idea, what their background is. So you're putting in complete trust that, hey, this person knows what they're doing. They're going to support the group equally. And we're going to crush this presentation the next day. So definitely learned a lot about that. And, the transferable skills that kind of come with that from my peers. And because of those late nights and, exhausting 6-day periods. I've made lifelong friends because of it that I still stay in touch with regularly, and it walks with me as I do my day-to-day job back here. So
absolutely. Grace, kind of same question to you about any particular experiences with where you were really learning from students based on your work together. And also I'm curious about how your network of classmates, how do you think that will help you, kind of in this next phase for you?
Yeah. I'd say the things I learned interpersonally through my MBA program are more valuable than some of the classes. And I wasn't expecting to value having one set team as much as I did. And I absolutely, that's one of the best parts of the program, because those 5 other teammates of mine, we still talk regularly. I know about their families, they know about mine. They were one of the first groups of people I messaged when I found out I was getting laid off. And one of them was like, come work here. So they're this really supportive community, but we had some struggles early on. We have a very diverse group of people with different backgrounds, different education levels, and very different approaches to work. Some very stringent and structured, and some a little more loosey-goosey and wait till the last minute. And so we had to figure out how to manage that together as a team. Part of the hybrid MBA program at UW, at the very beginning, you spend a class where you build out a team charter. And then the second semester, you go back and revisit that charter. And we made it a practice for our team to, at the beginning and end of each quarter, to review that charter and ground ourselves in the commitments that we made to each other and make any adjustments. And we made adjustments, I think, almost every quarter. And it was such a great social contract for us, where we knew it was a safe space. We knew that we were all committed to doing what was best for the team. And it really helped us kind of transition our mindset from advocating on our own behalf to doing what was best for the entire group.
Yeah.
As far as leveraging my existing community or that alumni community, I am on the alumni board, so I talk to a lot of alumni regularly. But even just last night, I had a different group of very close friends from that program who were not on my working team. And one of them was pitching this new idea that he's working on and wanted all of our feedback on it. And we grilled him and asked him a whole bunch of questions, and I'm really excited for his new venture. And so I trust my cohort a lot to help me in whatever I decide to do. And I know that they'll extend me any courtesy that they can.
Absolutely. Well, Amanda, can you tell us a little bit about, a lot of people go back for an online MBA for professional development, but what kind of personal development did this program offer you?
Yeah, I think more than anything, this program has taught me how to manage my time even better. I think that was something that I excelled in prior to this program. But being in this space of having work full time, having school, I typically try to do about 5 credits every 8 weeks. So with that, that's a lot to take on. And it has taught me a lot about managing my time and just being intentional. I will also say, I think the best advice I was given was set time blocks for yourself and don't let yourself, go outside of that. So my Saturday mornings are my Saturday mornings, and school doesn't touch them, work doesn't touch them. And that is my time to just be a human and enjoy my life outside of school and work. And I think being intentional about your time management is really important, and is just a really great life skill that the program taught me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to give everybody a chance to answer these next few questions. So I'm going to go ahead and move ahead to Brian. Can you tell me, kind of piggybacking off of what Amanda was saying, but tell us about the work-life balance when you're going to school, working full-time, having your families. How did you manage that? And what advice do you give to people considering an online MBA?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing you'll realize when you join an MBA, an online MBA like this, and you are really worried going into it about your work-life balance, is you're going to be really surprised at how creative you'll be, at where you can kind of fit in your schedule some schoolwork. I will be the first to admit I was doing discussion posts during my lunch at work. I was listening to lectures on my commute. I was watching or listening to Coursera videos on the treadmill, or you name it. You are going to find a lot of different ways that you can do your schoolwork, because one, they do make it so accessible for you and flexible, because all this content is digital. It's amazing how, you can take it on the run with you, and it's always at your fingertips, which is great. So the work-life balance, yeah, there are going to be sacrifices, and that's what you're signing up for. But at the end of the day, you're going to really surprise yourself at how much you can actually get done in a day, and realize, that you may end up enjoying it. I mean, there would be times that I would have to pass up on things that would probably be really fun on a weekend, but I was actually enjoying the content I was learning and the interactions I was having with the people that I was meeting. So I wasn't quite getting that fear of missing out as much as I thought I would. So,
Right.
yeah, if you're signing up for these programs, don't worry, you will find time and places to do your schoolwork.
Absolutely. George, what do you say to that?
Totally agree with my peers here. I think, challenging, not to sugarcoat it, it was challenging. And, at the beginning, I was having a hard time trying to navigate work, school, life, and, how do you kind of prioritize that? And learned very quickly, I think similar to Amanda's points, like you need to set boundaries. So communicated with my people leader to say, hey, I'm going to be signing off at this time. Don't bug me because I'm going to be doing schoolwork. And, same with personal life, had to kind of have the FOMO and miss out on some events, but it was for a bigger purpose. And I felt like setting that really helped me kind of put things into a bit more focus, and take the time to really enjoy and get what I wanted to out of the experience. Meditation as well really helped to kind of like zone out, because you do need that time where you're just not thinking about anything, to kind of, debrief after a crazy week. I remember an example distinctly where I was heading to the airport to go to school, and I was still on a meeting and answering emails. And that was like one of my first trips going in, and I'm like, this really needs to change because it's not sustainable. So I think I would really kind of push the fact that, you need to set your boundaries and really take the time for yourself. Otherwise, it's going to feel like a rushed experience, and you won't get the full experience out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, Grace?
George nailed it. Boundaries and expectations. So setting expectations with my working team, with my personal life, and also with my school team was really important. The primary expectation that I set was that I'm paying for this out of pocket by myself. And so my answer to everything is yes. Yes, I will go to that happy hour. Yes, I will go to that networking event. I'm taking advantage of every single opportunity, and that is my priority. And I had a great support community that was willing to respect those boundaries, and my work was willing to respect those boundaries as well. Also, for me, community is really important to me, and having regular interactions with my friends was really important. So I got to be very planful about like, hey, this is what my next week looks like. I have these windows. What do you want to do something in one of those windows? That would make me happy. Would that make you happy? And so just setting those really clear expectations. And then the other thing that I would recommend is find something that makes you excited to do your schoolwork or excited to study. For me, I had a few different things. UW has an amazing library that looks like Hogwarts called the Suzela Library. So when that was open and I didn't want to study, I would make myself go to Hogwarts because it's hard to not be in the zone when you're in Hogwarts. And then when I was at home, it was settling down with pumpkin creamer. Pumpkin creamer became the flavor of my grad school career because it was a tradition for me. Like, okay, I'm gonna make my coffee. I'm gonna add some pumpkin creamer. Okay, I'm getting down to business. I'm getting ready for work. And then even when most of campus was closed, I would go to a completely empty business building and just study and get myself into the mindset of going to school. So finding something that brings you joy while you're studying is key.
Well, that leads us right into the next question I was going to ask, which I would ask the rest of the panelists to kind of offer their unique bits of advice for people considering this, or who have signed on and are getting ready to start their MBA, online MBA soon. So George, yeah, kind of tell us your tricks for doing the online MBA.
I would say just really embrace it and make the most out of the experience, and make friends. Like, I know it can be hard, and it's like it really pulls us out of our comfort zone, because you're talking and meeting people from all over the world. Take the time to make friends and make those genuine connections, because not only are you learning from your colleagues or schoolmates, but you're also, you have this support system in the friends that you make. I know a lot of people have this sort of preconceived notion that MBAs are competitive, but I didn't get that vibe or experience at all. I found my network to be really supportive, and it helped along the way. It helped in the challenging times, and it made those great times feel even better. So take the time, make friends, really embrace it, and you're never too old or young to do your MBA experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Amanda, what about you?
For me, I think I have two big pieces of advice. The first being any prereqs that the university that you're wanting to attend offers, I would say take them. For instance, Purdue just recommended a few quantitative classes, so like intro to finance, things like that. And coming from journalism background, those were immensely helpful to set me up for success in some of those quantitative courses. And then my second piece of advice is have confidence that what you are bringing to the table is needed for others in the program. So for instance, not being, engineering background or supply chain background, being in some of those settings where I'm with a bunch of supply chain managers, they learned from me as much as I was learning from them, because they were baffled by, what I do in human resources and things like that. So be confident and know that you are there for a reason, and you're bringing some really cool experiences to the table as well.
Absolutely. And Brian, what about you? Tell us your advice for someone considering an online MBA.
Yeah, I think this might be stating the obvious, but obviously don't let the work compile. I mean, if you're going to do this, chipping away at it a little bit at a time is going to really benefit you. I mean, I saw plenty of students who would, on an 8-week course, wait till the final week to do a lot of the content, which was mind-blowing to me, because then one, you're not getting anything out of that course. You're not absorbing that information or truly learning it. You are simply cramming just so you can get by on a test. And then two, I mean, really embrace it. Kind of as everyone else is saying is, I think for me, a lot of the extracurricular activities that I did in this MBA was more rewarding than sometimes the class itself. Like George said, making those connections, you never know who you'll meet, what cool story or experience they may have, and how it may end up, impacting your future or being a connection further down the road. As everyone said, is like, I've made friends, I've stayed in touch with a lot of people, and I've already, kind of reaped some of those benefits just by getting to know people, and you just never know where life can take you. So really, truly embrace it.
Well, great. Thank you all. The advice that you give is particularly helpful coming from people who have lived the program and gone through it. And, we hope that the viewers maybe can glean some of that advice and help make them decision. And we appreciate everybody joining us today. And we have a great swath of panelists coming up on our online MBA event that's going on all day. So please continue to check those out. Thank you very much.